Good evening and welcome to Joy News Prime. We're coming to you live from our studios here at Kukumlemle. We're live on DSTV channel 421, Go TV channel 125, around the world on myjoyonline.com. My name is Faustina Safo and I'm doing this with...
And I'm Carlos Kaloni. Tonight on Joy News Prime, government shuts down Bank of Ghana's request for 53 billion cedis bailout as it requires selling the new Bank of Ghana building.
You know, you've seen their new head office. Very big building. They have a choice to sell and lease back if they want to. They have to look within and cut expenditure.
We have details as government's unwillingness to bail out the central bank put Ghana on a collision course with the IMF, which was expecting the government and the bank to work out a recapitalization plan.
I mean, it gives you a clear indication and a clear guidelines and the way you should operate that account. Unfortunately, it has been used as a slush fund.
Also tonight, Finance Ministry discovers 16 billion cedi slush fund by the Akufo-Addo administration as more details emerge about alleged misapplication of fund in tax refund account as government hands down responsible previous government officials. Also tonight, Finance Minister issues a pause order on 194 billion cedis worth of contracts awarded under the previous government.
Now, is the betting tax ever implemented or collected by the previous government?
Betting tax that they said they have abolished. We never collected betting tax. We never implement the betting tax.
Now, we fact-check the claims made by the former finance minister.
Also tonight, President John Dramani Mahama takes a swipe at the Akufo-Addo-led government, stating that the number of political appointees at the presidency has significantly reduced from 336 to 30 and promising to maintain a lean government.
To a lean government is not merely about reducing the number of ministerial appointees. It is grounded in our firm belief that government must exercise fiscal discipline.
Well, the Finance Ministry has shut down the Bank of Ghana's request for 53 billion cedis bailout, instead directing the central bank to explore internal solutions, including selling its newly built headquarters at Ridge. The Bank of Ghana has been reeling from a staggering 70 billion cedi loss, largely due to a 50% haircut from the controversial domestic debt exchange program under the Akufo-Addo-led administration.
Well, the Finance Minister, Dr. Kasiela Tuforsen, insists the government cannot step in just yet, a stance that not only leaves the central bank in financial turmoil, but also puts Ghana on a collision course with the International Monetary Fund. The IMF had expected government and the central bank to work out a recapitalization plan, but with no bailout in sight, tensions are mounting over how the regulator will restore its financial health.
Apparently, the previous administration and the Bank of Ghana had signed an MOU for the government of Ghana or the taxpayer to recapitalize the central bank with 53 billion Ghana cedis.
Do you have the money?
I've asked the Bank of Ghana to look within and cut expenditure because the taxpayer cannot afford 53 billion. I've communicated that to the government.
But they already have an agreement with government.
But they can look within. They can look within. First of all, they have to look within. You know, you've seen their new head office, very big building. They have a choice to sell and lease back if they want to. They have to look within and cut expenditure and reduce. Evans, the taxpayer cannot afford 53 billion Ghana cedis. Giving 53 billion Ghana cedis to the central bank will simply mean that we will have to deny the taxpayer some public good, like roads, like schools, like hospitals. Is that what we want? Can we afford it at this stage? The question is no. The answer is no. We cannot be able to afford that. And so the central bank must look within. They have hotels like guest house and others. Why are they in guest house? Can they sell some of them and use the money to recapitalize? The taxpayer cannot be used as a punching bag. So I've said to them they should look within. Luckily for me, the governor is on board. And I expect the governor to look within and cut expenditure to reflect the needs of the bank.
Well, Dr. Atuforsen says the central bank can also consider plowing back their profits for the next decade, and they will survive.
Central bank is able to come to me with a reasonable offer. We can have a conversation.
Okay.
But it must start from them. And I have also said that they may also have to consider plowing back their profit over the next 10 years to recapitalize it. That can also be done. It depends.
But what is the implication if they don't do this quickly? Can they survive?
It is not a problem. The bank can survive. See, first of all, what they need to do is to, as soon as possible, generate enough cash to be able to run the affairs of the bank, which I believe they are doing that. All over the world, you've seen some central banks that have survived with negative equity.
Yeah.
It's not out of order. They can
do that.
Well, as the central bank scrambles for solution, the financial sector watches anxiously, fearing ripple effects that could destabilize the economy. Let's understand the Bank of Ghana situation a bit more. And joining me now in the studio is lead data analyst Isaac Kofi. He joins me in the studio with more on this. Kofi, let's start with the impact of the domestic debt exchange program and why we're seeing this at this time.
Now, even before we even start with the impact of the DDEP, I mean, you can see two gentlemen on the smart wall. These are the gentlemen that Dr. Richmond Etuahene and co are saying that they should be held responsible for the current situation that the central bank finds itself in. Why? You spoke about the impact. This was the man, Kenneth Ofori-Atta, former finance minister, who introduced the domestic debt exchange program in order for the government to be able to get a $3 billion bailout package from the IMF. And in the course of doing that, government had to, get some breathing space, and they went to the central bank, the Bank of Ghana, and said that, can you give us some sort of haircut in terms of writing off about 50% of the loans that we owe you? So just by doing that, Bank of Ghana had to forgive the central bank then some 32 billion Ghana cedis during the debt restructuring exercise. We also know that just because of the forex losses, the bank actually saw a negative equity in 2023, 2022 and 2023. Now, this is a solution of, the position of the Bank of Ghana and why currently they need this big money on the smart wall. That is 53 billion Ghana cedis. That is the bailout package that the Bank of Ghana is requesting for. It is interesting that the bank, which is supposed to be the bailer of the commercial banks, is now looking for recapitalization. So the parent is sick, the child is also sick. Who will save the other? Now, if we go into the IMF program, we'll be beginning to get an appreciation of the agreement that the former administration actually reached with the IMF. What was the agreement? The agreement was that they were going to start the process of recapitalizing the central bank, and they were going to do it gradually. And they affirmed that the bank was heavily hit as a result of the domestic debt exchange program. Two was that if you look at this restructuring, how was it going to be done? And it was stated categorically that it was going to be gradual, and this year was important. But in terms of the funding sources, in the IMF program, what we are learning is that government actually told the IMF that there are 4 options that they are going to look at in recapitalizing the Bank of Ghana. The first option is the recapitalization through budgetary allocation. You have the second option, which is to transfer some of the assets that the Bank of Ghana also has. If we say that the Bank of Ghana is running with a negative equity, what does it mean? It means that if you sell all the bank's assets, it will not be enough to actually offset a debt. In fact, if you go on and look at the third option, the bank must either suspend profit transfers. Some of the transfers was they used to build the bank's hospital, and also the use of any buffers generated in this program implementation. But from the look of things, what we are learning is that it looks like the Bank of Ghana really was looking forward to the first option, which was to recapitalize through budgetary allocation. That is why they were in the process of signing the MOU with the finance ministry for them to be able to give them that 53 billion Ghana cedis. Let me end on this note. In 2023, 2021, the central bank was in trouble. It was the Bank of Ghana that bailed it out. Now the Bank of Ghana is in trouble, going to the the central bank to bail it out and says that, well, I don't have money. You need to go and sell your asset before you can pay. Interesting story there.
Interesting times ahead. But that was not the beginning of the bank's challenges. As far as our data is concerned, we know that we've been doing some checks, and banking consultant Dr. Richmond Etuahini says the former managers must be held accountable.
Mr. Furiata and his governor or his governor. Because when they started the debt restructure, I had a paper and I worked on it and I told them that where we are going is very dangerous. But any time you make a statement, the whole Bank of Ghana is policy solvent. You see, there's a difference between policy solvent, when you can be policy solvent, but your capital is solvent. It's more important than your policy solvent. Because there are certain things you cannot do at the moment. And they are making losses. This year, 2024, they are also making losses. They couldn't turn around into profitability this 2024. And how long is it going to go on? So they should be responsible. Those people should be summoned before Parliament or anywhere to let them justify why they did. Because there was a law which said that you shouldn't do more than 5%. The Fiscal Responsibility Act 982.
Well, fresh details are emerging tonight about how former government officials allegedly abused and misapplied more than 16 billion cedis in the government tax refund account. Speaking exclusively to Joy News, Finance Minister Dr. Kasiel Atoforse described how the Akufo-Addo government allegedly used the account as a slush fund. Now, the tax
had proposed to Parliament to impose 6% of all revenue to be set aside for the purposes of tax refund. 6%. And then we left office in 2016. So 2017 to date, the 6% had accumulated in total about 32 billion, 26 billion cedis. This 26 billion, I asked the GRA and the Ministry of Finance to give me a breakdown of how this taxes and tax refund account has been used. To my surprise, only, and I mean only 43% of the resources that accumulated into that account was used for the purposes that it was supposed to be used for.
And the purpose then was
to refund taxes.
Okay. So if you've paid your tax and it's established to an audit, you will refund.
Exactly. Like, you know, because of the nature and structure of the VAT, for example, there are times that you overpay, and then the tax authority will have to make sure that they refund you to encourage you to make also pay your taxes. Even 43% was used largely for tax refund. So I said, are you sure? Can you give me an analysis as to whether they have accumulated some arrears and they are not paying? To my surprise, once again, there was no arrears. And so largely less than 50% of the tax refund amount has been used for the purposes of tax refund. Then I came out to ask them a question. Can you tabulate for me, year in, year out, in the last 8 years, how they have applied the 57%? To my surprise, once again, the money was largely misapplied and used for things that were not supposed to be used. Is the fact. If you look at the Revenue Administration Act, it tells you what you have to use the tax refund account to. I mean, it gives you a clear indication and a clear guidelines and the way you should operate that account. Unfortunately, it has been used as a slush fund. Unfortunately. I don't want to go into the details as to how they use it because
once you say misapplied, yes, you must know what they used it for.
Oh no, I know exactly what they used the money for. They were using it to pay for contractors. As and when they feel that a contractor must be paid from that account, and they were paying it from the contractor. They were using it to pay contractors. That's what they did.
Is somebody going to be held accountable for this?
It is not up to me to hold people accountable. It's up to the government agency. And the government agency is acting on this matter.
You have drawn the attention of the agency.
Oh, they know already. To this. They know already.
But 16.61 billion is what you're talking about.
It's quite a lot of money that has been misapplied.
So the money, the excess, you didn't find it in the account?
It is not in account. The account is empty.
The account
is
29.11 billion.
Empty as we speak.
They use only 43%, and the rest vanished.
The rest has,
which is what you're tracking. You said it was misapplied.
Well, Joy News is also learning tonight that the Finance Ministry has issued a pause order on 194 billion cedis worth of contracts awarded under the previous administration. The Finance Minister disclosed on PM Express that the pause order will hold until a detailed audit of all pending government contracts is completed.
We have, again, contracts that has been awarded and active. About 194 billion Ghana cedis. Contracts. 194 billion Ghana cedis. Contract that has been awarded across the economy. That the Ministry of Finance, one way or the other, if they are to perform, will have to pay. But you see, the contract is what flows into the IPCs. Because when the person works, then the state will have to make allocation to pay. But if you don't have money, why do you award those contracts? 194 billion, almost $200 billion as cedis. 200 billion cedis. And that is different from the 67.5 billion Ghana cedis.
So you're not sure yet if those contracts have been executed or have been executed?
Yes, from the first job that we did, the feedback we had is that some of them are at site working, and some have also, some of them are suppliers, so they have to supply and they are in the process to supply. And so I've said that I want to validate once again and to find out whether they have the authorization to commit government to that extent. And if they don't have authorization, we'll ask them to stop.
Well, the former Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, may be in more trouble tonight as the Finance Ministry gathers evidence of breach of the Public Financial Management Act. Dr. Atuforson says they have found evidence to suggest that several contracts were awarded and executed over and above what was allowed by law, in some cases where there was no funding available. He says the Attorney General will be furnished with the evidence.
Ghana has unable to implement the PFM Act. The previous administration virtually did not implement the PFM Act. We do not need new laws. All what we need to do is to implement the PFM Act. And to implement it successfully, you need to apply the sanctions. And the sanctions may not only be looking forward, it has to look at those who have infringed upon the PFM Act.
In the past?
In the past. So you have to look back and look forward so that, at the minimum, those in office today will also know that what has happened to the person who infringed upon the PFM Act may happen to you.
To be clear,
so the country will not go down.
This will apply to officers in the previous administration.
Of course, it's a PFM Act, and if the if the infractions were so severe to the extent that it has affected the economy of Ghana, and people are paying a huge price of it, then of course, the Attorney General must act on that.
Well, thankfully, I have Francis Timoboy. He is a tax consultant. He joins the conversation right now as we explore this further. Thank you so much for your time on Joy News Prime. We've just been hearing from the Finance Minister really paint a grim picture about what is happening when it comes to the tax refund account. He says that more than 50% of that money has been misapplied. We're talking about over 16 billion Ghana cedis here. Let's just look at the legal implications, really. What would happen to individuals who are found to have misapplied these funds?
Allegations are true. For me, it's a complete breach of the laws. Section 69 of the Revenue and Treasury Act was clear. It says that the funds should be used to pay for refund for people who have, for some reason, overpaid tax and they are entitled to a refund. In some jurisdictions, you are there when you overpay tax, a check, you open your letterbox, and you get a refund of a check. In Ghana, we set up that fund that not more than 6% should be deposited into that account, and we should use it to pay for reference. If for any reason, at the end of the year, Section 69 says this, if we have some money standing in that account, that money shall be paid into the consolidated fund. And the key word is shall be paid into the consolidated fund. So which means that it becomes a public fund. So under no circumstance can you use it for any other purpose. What that means is that if you go and use it, it is more like you have used money from the consolidated fund without going through the relevant appropriation process. For example, seeking approval from Parliament. And you know in Ghana, you cannot use money from the consolidated fund without going through the relevant process. So for me, I think it's a complete breach of the rules. And possibly people can be, sanctioned for doing this.
Now, we've been hearing from the finance minister. Just give us a breakdown, really. He says that bank account is currently empty as we speak, and the previous managers of the economy used the money to pay contractors, which you're just educating us right now that it ought to have been paid into the consolidated fund. How do we ensure issues like this do not spring up in the future?
So maybe punishing those who breach the rules. Like I said, you have used money from the consolidated fund without going through the relevant process. You may have used it for all the good intentions and purposes, but for you breaching the rules, you not going through the right procedure, I think the rules have to be applied. Going forward, what we just have to do is that we keep an eye on that fund. Anybody who touches that fund, not for payment, in fact, it's the Commissioner General who has the power. He must pay refunds from that account. And I'm aware that many taxpayers, especially the mining companies and those who export, they have applications in the process and there are too many delays. So the question is, why are we delaying them? Is it because we want to use the money for other purposes? That would be unfair to taxpayers. So let's keep an eye on that fund, and the payment should only be made to taxpayers who have overpaid and they are entitled to the refund. Any excess should go straight to the consolidated fund. If we want to use it to pay contractors, let's go through the proper appropriation process and use it.
Thank you so much for your time here on Newswire.
Well, tonight, let's focus on claims on betting tax implementation and collection in Ghana made by former Finance Minister Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam after the budget presentation yesterday. This was after the Finance Minister Dr. Kasiela Toforson announced plans to abolish the tax on the floor of Parliament during the 2025 budget presentation. Take a listen.
We have programmed the following nuisance taxes for removal in line with our manifesto promise. Mr. Speaker, we will abolish the 10% withholding tax on winning from lottery, otherwise known as the betting tax. Mr. Speaker.
Well, in reaction to this, the former minister made the claims, and my colleague Isaac Kofi Eje joins us in studio with more on what he said and the verdict. So, Kofi, what exactly did the former Minister of Finance said? Well,
so the former Finance Minister was actually, reacting to the claim made by the current Finance Minister, who said winnings on lotteries, otherwise known as betting tax. In fact, we must state that the two are not the same. So
right.
The Finance Minister himself got the quotation wrong. And in his attempt to actually rebut what the Finance Minister has actually put out, he also made a mistake by saying that, they never collected the betting tax. In fact, but if you go deep, you will see that if you are equating the lotteries to betting, then they are saying that, well, then we never collected that.
Okay.
But what we are learning is that, in fact, there is more to this claim. And what we got from the Ghana Revenue Authority is that the betting tax itself, or otherwise the withholding on the winnings from betting, was actually collected in 2023 and 2024. So let's break it down.
All right. So, can we listen to exactly what the minister said?
Then we'll come back to it.
Great.
Betting tax that they said they have abolished. We never collected betting tax. We never implement the betting tax. So to come and tell Ghanaians that you have abolished something that was not implemented is to deceive the people of Ghana.
Right. He was categorical.
Yeah, betting tax. If you use the word betting tax, you get yourself into a problem. But if you say the lottery side of the gaming and betting tax, then people will understand. Why?
Right.
Because there's a bigger umbrella called the gaming and betting tax. And in the implementation, it was supposed to go through 3 phases. The phase one was the implementation of the gross, gaming revenue, which was supposed to be like a corporate income tax for the betting companies. Phase two, which was implemented in August of 2023, is the 10% on withholdings of, winnings from betting.
Yeah.
Right? That is the bone of contention here. That is the promise that both political parties made to the people of Ghana and the investors that they were going to abolish. The last phase, which is the lottery side, the 10% on winnings from lotteries, has not been implemented. And according to the intelligence we are gathering, NLA was opposed to this bit and says that if you decide to put 10% on withholdings, what you're going to do is that you are going to collapse the public lotto industry. Right. And so we decided to go through the Ghana Revenue Authority's account to see if indeed anything was actually collected on betting. And in fact, when we went into the account, we realized that the betting tax, which is the 10% withholding on betting gains or wins, was actually implemented. And in 2023, government rigged in some 51.3 million Ghana cedis and got almost 148 million Ghana cedis in 2024. If you add the two, this means that in a span of 2 years, not even up to 2 years, because if you look at the implementation period, government has been able to rake in some close to 200 million Ghana cedis in terms of that 10% withholding on betting. But the betting industry itself is bigger than possibly we are thinking about. These are the number of taxes that government enjoys from the betting industry. If you add all of them, in 2024 alone, government was able to get some close to 500 million Ghana cedis from the betting industry.
Betting is a big business.
Big business. If you look at the 10% withholding and how much government got as withholding that 10%, this is the taxes people paid. That tells you that in 2023 and 2024, people actually won a lot of bets. And many have said that if this is becoming an income to the youth, why don't you tax it? But the promise was that they were going to abolish the 10% on the withholdings. And that is what the finance minister announced.
Well, thank you so much, Isaac Ofieje. He's been looking into the data and then bringing us with all those...
all the details, really.
Exactly.
It's shocking to see how much money government made from the betting industry. Well, you're still watching Joy News Prime. We'll be back after this quick turn. Thanks for staying with us here on Joy News Prime. Now, President John Dramani Mahama has reiterated his dedication to a leaner and more efficient government, stating that there are currently 30 political appointees at the presidency. He says it's a notable reduction compared to 336 political appointees appointed by the Akufo-Addo-led administration. Speaking during the swearing-in ceremony of deputy ministers and Minister of State, he noted that while the recruitment process for supporting staff continues, the numbers under his administration will not come close to the huge number of appointees under the previous government.
Our commitment to a lean government is not merely about reducing the number of ministerial appointees or reducing the numbers at the presidency. It is grounded in our firm belief that government must exercise fiscal discipline by ensuring that public resources are used efficiently and responsibly. This commitment stems from a deep recognition that there must be a fair balance between government expenditure and the responsibility of citizens to fund national development and state administration through payment of their taxes. Public funds must go primarily into investments that benefit the Ghanaian people directly, and those who administer those funds and use it in pursuit of that objective must not be the largest beneficiary of same.
Well, the Mahama-led government is taking steps to establish a sustainable funding model and legal framework for free dialysis and the treatment of other non-communicable diseases, NCDs, in Ghana. Now, according to the World Health Organization, NCDs account for approximately 45% of deaths in the country, with cardiovascular diseases responsible for 19% and cancers 5%. To drive this initiative, Health Minister Kobina Minta-Kandor has inaugurated a 9-member technical task force of Ghana Medical Trust Fund, also known as Mahama Cares, to oversee its implementation, focusing on improving healthcare infrastructure and easing the financial burden on patients battling chronic illnesses like kidney diseases. Now, thankfully, we have the Health Minister joining us for more on this. Thank you so much for your time. There are concerns about the government's position on free dialysis treatment. Tell us what the government intends to do with it until the Mahama Care takes effect.
Thank you for having me. I get confused when feedback. Hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
There's a lot of feedback. Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. I think it's better now.
Hello? Okay. No, yeah. Okay, so I get confused when people say that there is free dialysis somewhere or in Ghana. This is a misleading statement. There's no free dialysis anywhere. And don't forget, I was a ranking member of the Health Committee until I was appointed as the Minister for Health. The last formula, the National Health Insurance Program, that's when the committee considered about 2 million Ghana cedis for dialysis. And if you could recall, when the announcement was made, it was supposed to take care of people below the age of 18 years and people above the age of 60 years. And these groups are in the minority when it comes to kidney patients or renal patients. You understand? And so we had 2 million allocated to dialysis, and they had to take about 2 million Ghana cedis from the corporate social responsibility, making 4 million. We have not less than 1,200 patients, okay? And they require not less than 3 times per week. So you are looking at 32, times multiplied by 400. And you are talking about in the region of about 74, 75 million Ghana cedis. So you can't depend on 4 million Ghana cedis for something that you should, use 75 million Ghana cedis for.
Right.
So, and even that policy, even that particular announcement, with respect to the 2024 National Health Insurance Formula, and the National Health Insurance Formula died on the 31st December 2024. So beyond 31st December 2024, there was absolutely nothing like free dialysis because there was no policy, there was no source of funding and all that. So what they are thinking about at the moment is a sustainable, dedicated, reliable source of funding.
Right.
To be able to take care of these chronic diseases, i.e. kidney-related diseases, cardiovascular-related diseases, and cancers. So we will spell out the sources of funding of this particular fund,
right?
So that it will be sustainable, it will be permanent, and we will also clearly define the criteria how people can also access this fund.
So as it stands now, government does not know where you're going to get a funding for this project.
Oh, there are a lot of proposals. There are a lot of proposals, but we want to wait for the task force to come out with all these, consolidate all these ideas, and then we can speak to them. But there are a lot of we are clear in our mind. We are looking at. You see, it's one of the reasons why government has decapped the National Health Insurance Fund. So we'll pick some money from there. We will look at corporate Ghana. We will look at other sources. We will look at other sources.
Right. We do know that tomorrow is World Health Kidney Day. What programs do you have in place at the ministry to highlight the issues of kidney? Well, unfortunately, we've lost him there. Well, so that's it. He's been giving us some details as to what government is really planning in terms of getting some funding source for this particular dialysis treatment.
And for people on dialysis, this is something you're looking forward to. We'll be following this story closely and give you updates as is when we have it. Now, let's take you to court. In an unusual move, the Supreme Court has allowed convicted NPP parliamentary candidate for Akwetia Ernest Kumi to appear before it in a bid to overturn his conviction by the Koforidua High Court. Now, despite being in contempt of court, Kumi was granted the opportunity to appeal. Legal Affairs correspondent Latif Idrisu reports from the courts.
The Supreme Court had made a ruling that a contaminor can only be heard if he purges himself. And so, but today, Gary Nimako was able to convince the court why the convicted member of parliament for Akwetia should be heard. He made a case that in exceptional cases or in exceptional instances, someone who was not heard by a court but has been convicted is expected to be heard by another court. By a 4-1 decision, the Supreme Court have today given or opened the window for the convicted Akwetia MP to be heard at the Supreme Court on the substantive matter. Essentially, it has to do with the order of interim injunction that the Koforidua High Court placed on the elected member of parliament then on the 6th of January 2025. That was a day before the swearing in of members of parliament. Gary Nimaku makes the case that the judge made this ruling in the absence of a gazette notification to suggest that at the time the judge made this ruling, the member of parliament in contention had not been gazetted as member of parliament for Akwetia.
Let's stay in the court because former Sanitation Minister Cecilia Dapaah told the court she could not specify how much each accused person had stolen from her storage room. Madame Dapaah made this statement during cross-examination by the lawyer for the second accused, identified Olin as Sarah.
Madame Cecilia Dapaah, who admitted to court that the said or the accused person, that is the second accused person, had a second stint working as a house help at her residence. She makes a point to the court today that at the time these items got missing from her storage, Sarah, who is A2 in the ongoing criminal trial, was actually working at the residence. And so she is very sure and confident that she is among the syndicate that had stolen her money. Now, at a certain point during the cross-examination, emotions took over A2, that is Sarah, who interjected the proceedings in court and then made her case directly confronting Madame Cecilia Dapaah and make the case that Madame Cecilia Dapaah, in some of her disclosures that she's made to the court, she's presented some pictures, and in the pictures you would find boxes of jewelry and then A2 in that same picture, suggesting that these jewelry boxes were the boxes in which she had kept the jewelries that were stolen by these 7 accused persons who are standing trial.
Well, let's see some other stories now. Rising temperatures from climate change are threatening poultry farm in Doma East District of the Bono region, with farmers facing severe losses due to heat stress. Increased temperatures have led to higher poultry mortality rates, jeopardizing livelihood and food security. In response, the Department of Agriculture has introduced cooling system for poultry houses to help reduce heat stress and lower mortality rates. There's more in this report by Mahmoud Nuruddin.
Heat stress may be our farmer. Na ne mami who say heat stress, you know.
This season I encountered heat stress. I noticed it when I entered the poultry house around 3 p.m. I saw the birds panting, opening their beaks and making unusual sounds. I also observed that 9 birds were lying in the litter, struggling to walk.
Extreme heat has devastated farmers here at Dapaah East, wiping out flocks and leaving many with losses or even debt. In the face of adversity, these farmers have found hope and innovation in the most unlikely of places. Christiana is one of the poultry farmers.
Heat stress impacts our finances significantly. It results in high mortality rate, causes the eggs to become very soft and break easily, and leads to reduced egg production. The veterinary team led by Robert is doing an excellent job, and they visit regularly without needing to be invited.
Farmers like Christiana, alongside many others in Dapaah East, are adapting new cooling systems to protect their investments.
When the drinking water becomes hot, it can contribute to heat stress, so I decide not to use the iron sheets for roofing the water tank. Instead, I planted trees around the tank to provide shade. I use that cooler water to supply to the birds.
Farmers are already reporting positive results.
The
heat is everywhere. Thanks to the training we received as poultry farmers, we learned to add ash blocks to the water to help cool the bird systems. After 12 p.m., we start using the ashed water to lower their body temperature.
Now, in our Ghana Month series today, we will take you to Dapaah, a town whose name meaning women do not like poverty, tells a story of struggle and survival. But beyond the name lies a deeper tale of resilience. Anasabit has more.
In Ghana, names of towns and villages are mostly given by the first settlers in those communities and are often drawn from their life experiences. But few are as bold as Mampenya, which literally means women do not like poverty. For decades, this community, which lies along the Techiman-Sunyani highway, had its name derived from a bitter experience of the man who first settled here. Today, we are here to uncover the defiant history behind this extraordinary name, which have left many travelers and visitors wondering what could have informed the unique name of this predominantly farming community. Opeinana Amuabafo is a resident and a former assemblyman here. He tells me what he knows about the man who first settled here. What I know about it is that the man who first settled here was from Kobo. He was from the Nsanye family and was called Aduyao. Openi Aduyao, who then had 2 wives, went through lots of difficulties with his farming trade, subjecting him to extreme hardships. This led to his 2 wives leaving him because they both abhorred poverty. He came with 2 wives, but seeing how tough life became, both wives left him. His friends and family started inquiring about the whereabouts of his wives. He would then reply by saying, "We know women don't like poverty." Hence the name Mampenya. In a world where poverty often silences voices, Mampenya reminds us that poverty can cause a lot of harm, including pushing married women who abhor hardships out of their marriages. Anasabit, Joy News.
Well, it's the Wednesday edition of Showbiz, and Becky Beggs is in red and white.
I told you, but it's okay. It's fine.
I'm in red too, red and...
Yeah, you love red. So because of where you're coming from? No, you don't have to answer that. Because it's a Wednesday, we're throwing the spotlight on somebody that I'm about to tell you, very short one. So if you were an avid fan of Ghanaian sitcoms in the early 2000s, The Home Sweet Home will definitely feature on your watch list. The movie which portrayed an everyday life of a typical Ghanaian home was shown in the early 2000s and went off the screens in 2008. But after close to 20 years since it went off the screens, one of the notable characters, Junior, called Dapaah, in real life has opened up about how the lack of structures in the movie industry forced him to chart a new path in the investment promotion. The actor, who is now the head of mission for the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council, says he feels the Ghanaian movie industry is dead.
It has been a life-changing experience for me because I think from my time on TV, I learned so much. And yes, the creative arts is not given the respect that it should be. And I worked with some of the greatest actors like Kofi Bakna of blessed memory, Kojo Datsun, you know, phenomenal actors, Samajete Fio. We've had phenomenal actors who, unfortunately, they've been born in a continent or in a country where we didn't have the right structures in place to support them. In the 60s and 70s, we had a lot of structures, you know, where we had Ghana Films. You had a lot of structures that could help make real stars and let them be able to earn a living out of what they were doing. But the lack of respect for the sector has been to do with the fact that it seems like a hobby for most people. You know, if people were well paid, like you have in Hollywood, where they have their own place called Hollywood and they earn lots of money and they have their own private checks, etc., I think it would have brought more respect. So I'm hoping that over the next few years, we'll have the right policies in place that will help to support the creative arts, whether you're talking of music, you're talking of film or theater. The talent there is boundless. And it's a hat that I wear with pride still. And I'm looking forward to do something within that space to help young filmmakers, young singers, young creatives to realize that what they have is as important as STEM and science, etc.
Would you say that the Ghanaian movie industry is dead?
Yes.
Totally.
I don't remember the last time, you know, I watched a Ghanaian movie, if I'm being very honest. And I think our cinema-going culture is pretty dead, you know. So it is dead. But I think there's a lot of changes happening across board. You know, I don't think it's only for Ghana. I think for Nigeria and for other places, they're less dead, but they're still on a bit of a decline as opposed to how it was.
Yeah, but Nollywood is doing quite well, isn't it?
Relatively well.
Yeah, to our sector. Do you feel that they've been a drain on, you know, perhaps the talent we had, paying and enticing more of our creatives to move into their space and ending up to, I mean, crippling the Ghanaian movie industry?
No. I think Ghana's problems are to be owned by Ghana itself. Nigeria has a lot of benefits. They have a larger market, larger population. They also understand the idea of show business. And a lot of the time, many people just understand the show part of it. But there's a business side to it. You have Nigerian industrialists who might put millions of dollars into a particular film because they believe in the sector. You know, so I think that is the difference. There's from an economies of scale perspective, it's easier for them to do well. You do a movie back in the days, 1 million people watch it in Nigeria. If each person is charging the equivalent of $1, that's $1 million. You know, so in terms of numbers, it's a numbers game. You know, so I don't think they've siphoned our talent or cannibalized our talent or anything of that sort. It's an opportunity for us to actually see how we can collaborate with our brothers in Nigeria. You know, I know occasionally we beat them in football, etc. and now jollof rice is better than theirs as well. But I believe in cooperation. I believe in partnership. And I think it's for us to see how we can work with them, both in terms of Afro beats, in terms of music, etc. Let's see how we can work with them to better our
and
industry.
Probably because the sector has not been as rewarding.
So watch out for the full interview of this particular conversation with my colleague Blessed Suga on Foreign Affairs on Friday. It's a beautiful one. Yeah. But, you know, it's Ghana month. Yesterday, we promised to talk about the meaning of our names. So we'll begin with you before we go to social media and find out from, you know,
Kaloni.
Mr. Kaloni. So what's the meaning of
warrior?
Warrior.
Yeah.
Warrior. And Lolonyo means?
Lolonyo literally means?
Love is good.
Love is good.
Love is good.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, no, we won't talk about me. Let's go on to social media. We don't have time. We need to read.
We can just do it in seconds.
What's my name again?
Yeah. Becky Beggs, but the surname is what we want to know.
So which one is the surname?
Oh, you don't know your surname.
I'm asking you my surname.
No, I want you to tell
Well, Trenebois is a surname.
What does it mean?
That's Darko and Trenebois. Trenebois, my dad tells me that there was this man who is a warrior who laid down his life for the people or my people. Right. So he is the Trene that has helped us. So Trene Abwaye.
Oh,
yes.
Beautiful name.
That's my name,
so
Trenebois.
Means warrior, Kaloni warrior, Trenebois.
Trenebois warrior.
Yeah, of course, you know.
Yeah,
wow.
So for those of you who sent in your comments on social media, let's read them out for you. Blessed. The first one says Agbeke. Agbeke means life root. Asante, he says that we should help him.
Unless you help me out with the meaning.
Uncle, we asked you specifically to give us the meaning of your name. We cannot help you. Edu Jemfi says what?
But I don't know the
meaning of Edu Jemfi. We should ask Sami Jemfi what the meaning of that name is. So Techi, my father didn't reject.
It's Tikai.
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 Oh, Tikai. My father didn't reject me.
Oh.
So Akugri. Stone. Oh, so Akugri means stone.
Stone, yeah.
Akugri vampire. Oh, no. Then there's Akugu.
There's another one. That's Akurugu.
Akurugu. Metal or iron.
Oh.
I love Akurugu.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and Deku.
Deku.
Is palm nut. And oh, no. Why would you say Tinubu?
Tinubu.
We don't understand Tinubu, but it's okay. Alex Adama Aye says that Aye. And also, but I mean, we're grateful that you brought in your comments, and please let's keep celebrating Ghana Month here on Joy News.
Exactly.
Please log on to myjoyonline.com. That's where you find all the news. We'll come up with something else on Friday. It will be very special, so please do not miss the edition. Edition. Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for having me all the time.
And Prime Business is up next.
Up next.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.